change right now.
Thank you. Senator Britt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for all the witnesses for being here today. During my time in the Senate, I have made my concerns about big tech pretty darn clear, particularly as it relates to the impact of big tech and their business models and how that affects our children, largely looking at social media platforms. I also share some of my colleagues' concerns with the market power exercised by big tech firms and the extent in which they wield that market power in ways that stifle competition and erode public discourse via censorship of disfavored views. But I also know that we're in the middle of an ongoing competition with China for dominance in AI. And the Trump administration has made it very clear that it intends to keep the United States at the forefront of AI innovation. Obviously, many of the more established tech firms have been leaders in the development of AI in this country. However, we know that something has to be done about the things that I mentioned at the very beginning. So my question actually is for the entire panel. How do you think that we can best approach enforcement of antitrust laws in a way that effectively addresses the problem that we've seen with big tech, but that also doesn't undercut our position as the world's leader in AI innovation and development? And I'll just start here and we'll go all the way down.
I'm glad you're asking this question because I think it's important. There's often a misconception that by enforcing antitrust laws, we're going to hurt the American economy or hurt our ability to have big companies that compete internationally. I think it's quite the opposite, actually. We need to subject our own companies to rigorous competition here so that they are battle tested, so to speak, when they go abroad. If we don't, and they're insulated, coddled here, and then they try to compete on the international stage with companies that have in their own domestic industries been subject to intense competition, their products won't be as good. And so I think it's another one of those win-win situations where we enforce competition here, and in so doing, we set American companies up to continue being world leaders.
Excellent. Mr. Tan.
In my remarks, I mentioned Siri. Who here actually uses Siri? I personally do not, because I know that it does not have the cutting-edge technology that
I don't get along well with her. So
exactly. That Anthropic or OpenAI or many other American labs could provide. And imagine if Apple opened it up so that, similar to when you open Windows, you have to choose a browser. Okay. What if you could choose your AI agent? Then there are 1 billion consumers in the world who would suddenly have access to not just one self-preferenced Siri, but a variety of American labs. And that would open up investment, that would open up prosperity.
And Mr. Tan, what you're saying is exactly what Professor Van Loo said, because then at that point, then Siri is going to be the very best, or since you have multiple options to choose, we're going to encourage our own producers to make better products.
Exactly. And instead, we are stuck with a Siri that will not have significant large language models for a number of years.
Doesn't understand my Southern accent.
I'll keep it simple. I agree with everything you've heard, and I would just add that as it relates to AI, which is much of the discussion right now, the evidence around Google that we saw in the courtroom during the antitrust trial and Judge Mehta's understanding of how important that was, including the remedies, has been very clear that we need competition in the AI world, and basically allowing a $1 trillion company to continue to be a monopolist in order to abuse that is the last thing we should be doing if we want to compete with China.
Absolutely. Ms. Harper.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what's been said. I would just add that actually the monopolist often has an incentive to stifle competition. So Google had large language models, but withheld them because they couldn't figure out how to integrate them with search and not threaten how much money they were making off of search. And so really, again, the key is to use enforcement to unlock competition, to force companies to have other companies that might emerge that have more sophisticated technology to keep America competitive. Because the reality is we're already losing.
Absolutely. Okay.
I'll just add that, just trying to put a fine point on it, is competition creates innovation. And if we can't compete with Google, or if others can't, then we're going to have the same products and they're going to get worse, is what we're already seeing. In the Google search case, evidence made clear that Google was well aware that they don't offer their users the same kind of privacy protection that DuckDuckGo does, and very clearly said that, we don't actually think that this is a big deal because no one's going to leave. And so we don't have to offer our users more privacy. We're not actually facing competitive pressure. That's somewhere where we could have seen more innovation and consumers lost out in the end.
Look, I'm out of time, Mr. Chairman. Certainly have more questions. I'm going to submit those for the record. It's critically important that we tackle this right now. I think that our future and the next generation are depending on us to do it. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator Britt. We'll hear next from Senator Klobuchar.
Thank you. I'm just, holding back the urge to take over the gavel after our many
anytime,
years
anytime.
together.
No, it's